I could recognize Jenny, can I just ask you a quick question about the AAUW?
Yes,
Are you a member of that? And
yes,
what is that?
AAUW stands for American Association of University Women. We're a group of women, old people, that support education, equality for women. Primarily in the education thing, promoting education, helping them in the workforce, quality, fairness in the workforce and anything like that. And so we've been around for 100 years.
Is it a county?
It's nationally. It's not our branch is the Seaside
okay.
branch. There's another branch like in Astoria. There's a branch in like Tillamook. Up and down. Oregon has like 22 branches.
So do you have to be like a university graduate?
Okay, so the deal is you're supposed to be either a 4-year graduate or a 2-year graduate, but not necessarily. We have room for anyone that wants to support our mission. And we do, I mean, we do things like our candidates form because that's, we can't take a position, but we can support getting the information out there. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I've been in it 20 years. Besides that, I get another tickets with. And connecting with community is very
well done.
Thank you. All right, everyone have your cell phone off or on airplane mode or something like that for me. Do we have Garrett?
There it is. With that.
Am I good? Do we have Peter?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. Okay, we have City Administrator Monty. Here's Garrett.
That is not here. You want to text Peter?
Well, it is just 6 o'clock. And you know how I am. I start everything with time. Much to everyone's consternation. Have you got, yes, have you got your recording going?
I do now.
You can't nod your head for that, Chad.
Peter's running a bit late to his computer.
Okay, well, we've got some stuff to go through first, so I'm sure he'll join us. Okay. So at 6 o'clock, I call the order of the Gearhart Planning Commission on October 10th. Members present are all commissioners except John Mesberg, and Chad is there for the staff, and Angelina and Garrett and Andy Parfett. I don't know what positions. And Peter will be joining us. John Mesberg asked to be excused. Angelina just gave you that email. He's in Scotland. Do I have a motion to excuse John?
I move to excuse John.
Okay, Russ has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Jennifer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Thank you. Moving ahead, we have the current agenda. We have the minutes from August 8, 2024, the financial report of September 24, 2024. And when this came out, of course, we had no correspondence. We have received some correspondence reflecting to the public hearing, but nothing else. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Do we, just wait a second, Eric. Paulina, did you have
one typo.
a typo?
In the minutes.
In the minutes, where?
Page 2, second paragraph, last line.
Yeah.
GB swap, not spot.
Okay. Being two different things, totally right. Thank you for catching that. Okay. Then back to Eric to accept the consent agenda with the change.
I so move.
Eric has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Paulina has second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, moving ahead, staff report, I'll start with Chad.
I'll keep mine pretty short today. Things going well. We have been working with the Klosh Group on the public safety building replacements. It's entering into the next phase where we have hired an architect now with council's consensus. And they are beginning to do their work and collecting information from staff. Soon they will be publishing dates for public meetings that will be coming out of that so that we can work with the community and go through this process. The other thing that they went ahead and approved was geotech expenditure to do testing on 2 sites to make sure to test the ground up to 180 to 100 feet. And with that geotech report, the architects and engineers will work on designing, draft designing a foundation plan for the site so that we can start working on costs. So be aware that that's happening, that meetings will be conducted for the public and some work sessions for the city council to move forward in that endeavor. We have one location for sure that we're going to test, which is the current location. And then the second location is still up in the air at the moment about what we're going to do. The folks that were offering their property across the way, the Ordway family, decided that they needed to sell the property faster than the city could get to the bond process to where we could get money to buy it if we wanted it. Not that that decision was made, but it was just as an option. They had a family change and they need to sell that property sooner than later. So it's out of contention. The council is going to meet in a work session likely on the next Tuesday, I think that's the 15th, to discuss what, if any, second location we can work with. We've heard that the school site is still something that is being considered, but I'm waiting for council to give me and staff some direction on that. That's my report for now.
And I assume when you say testing, if they're going down 80 feet, 100 feet.
Yeah.
And what are they looking for?
They're going to be looking for the soil types, the type of sand that's underneath us, the compaction of that sand. They're going to be looking also for water, where that begins, because we are standing on a giant aquifer in this location, which is about at 12 feet in Gerhardt, where the aquifer really is at. With that soil information and that water information, they can work on designing a critical infrastructure type foundation, which is the most expensive part of the building, I think, especially when it's critical infrastructure.
Is the aquifer at 12 feet when you're on a dune?
It starts to go out that direction. Yeah, it kind of comes down. There are days after a good rain and the aquifer's grown a little bit where you will see water coming out from underneath the dunes towards the ocean. There is enough of a flow of water that is going through our aquifer underneath us that it actually pushes the ocean back. And so we monitor that. We have test wells that are in front of our wells so that when we are pumping water, we're making sure we're not bringing ocean water in. So there's a flow of water that's underneath our feet.
But your wells, excuse me, well, your wells are far deeper than 12, right? I mean, the wells are drinking water out.
They're at about 150 to 165 feet.
And is that the same aquifer or
There's really 2 different aquifers. There's the shallow aquifer that's on top of the other aquifer, and then there's one down below. I don't know what the delineation on that is.
Okay.
But we're gonna find out.
I think they may have already known when they were doing the testing for the geotech companies have taken all of our information from our wells that we dug when we did our drinking water wells, which was fascinating because if you look at every 10 feet or so of soil differences, at the very bottom is the same river rock that is in the cove, 160 feet down. Wow. I won't call it river rock, but the round river type.
We call it river rock.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting to see how the geology, and Tom Horning has written a paper that kind of tells the story about how all that happened.
Eric?
Chad, even though it's been ruled out, I'm just curious, where was the Ordway property?
Dollar General, just to the south of Dollar General, where that large white house with the nice porch, wraparound porch is right off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
It was an arts supply store for a period of time, photograph shop, and before that a real estate office, and before that Nuveen Capital was there as well. They were big, huh?
And has the property on Highlands Road been completely ruled out, or is it still potentially open for discussion?
I mean, I think discussion could happen, but I think that the plan or the city council ruled that out after the last election.
Oh,
And how much geotech have we done there?
We did geotech at that site. We did geotech at the Murphy site that was in the Palisades. And so we've done those two geotech tests, and they found that at both those locations, they were excellent candidates. Anytime that you were 30 feet off of the aquifer, liquefaction was almost not a factor. Within 30 feet of an aquifer, liquefaction is a factor, so that's why the foundation will likely be more expensive in a location such as the current location to handle that type of movement and settling and that sort of thing.
And we're sharing all those geotech reports we have with our new.
Already geotech company. Another interesting piece of that is that it was kind of found and through Tom Horning as well, but through the geotech, that the difference between the dune that is where the Palisades is at and the dune where Pine Ridge Drive that goes all the way to the cottages site, the old site that we're looking at, is about 2,000 years in regards to timeline.
Well, aren't you glad I asked that question?
I'm glad I had the answer today. Maybe not tomorrow.
Okay, Angelina, did you have anything? No, do you have anything, Ms. Park?
I'm just here to answer questions as necessary.
Okay, Garrett, do you have anything for us?
Can we be introduced to this?
Oh,
Man.
Yes, go for it.
So this is Division Chief Andy Park. Andy had joined us over a year ago now, and she is a paramedic, licensed paramedic. And she is also, as the division chief, she's the second person in charge of the fire department. And the volunteers absolutely love her. So she's been doing a fantastic job for us, very smart, and enjoy working with her.
and full of energy, you gotta watch out for
Yes.
her. Okay, Garrett, do you have anything as a staff report to report to us?
Sure. There's a few development and land use proposals to just give you an update on. So we've received a building permit application for 2 lots at the intersection of 2nd Street and Neocoxie Creek on the Ridge Path side of the creek. And the application is just for building permits and not proposing conditional uses or variances or partitions. And so we just wanted to let you know that we received that application and we're reviewing it thoroughly. And we will let them know if we think that they do need a variance for anything. We also received a business license for a bottle shop in the C1 zone. And it seems that it'll require some interpretation of land uses in terms of what's allowed in C1. And so we might be back with you in November or December for a land use interpretation or a conditional use permit on that. And then we've also received a variance application for a new front entryway on a home in a medium density residential zone. And that is being scheduled. That'll be a variance hearing at your regular November meeting. And I was also going to give you an update on the buildable lands inventory work and communications that Peter and I have been having, but we had that got on the agenda in a information and discussion item later. So I guess we can wait. That'll be very brief, but we'll wait for that. I think finally, the FEMA pre-implementation compliance measures to integrate the Endangered Species Act into our floodplain management regulations issue that you had a joint work session on with City Council a few weeks back. At that joint work session, you and City Council decided that City Council would meet and discuss it further. And in their last meeting, they asked us to work with you all on developing a hybrid approach that combines the model ordinance and the habitat assessment guidelines. And since we had that joint work session, FEMA has also scheduled a new round of information sessions to inform local government staff on how to follow their requirements. And I know that we might be, relatively advanced in our conversations on this compared to other local governments. I know we're not the farthest behind by any means. And so we've gotten that direction from City Council to work on a hybrid approach, but we also want to make sure that we're working with as much complete information as we can. And so we're not going to rush. We didn't want to rush that matter onto this agenda. And the first FEMA information sessions are on October 30th and 31st. In that regard, we're also not going to be like rushing into a complete discussion in November, but we will, I think, address it a little bit more completely in November than I am with just this little update right now. So it's just an update for you. We got direction from City Council, but we're waiting on some pretty near-term additional information from FEMA before we move forward with y'all.
Okay, and how are you doing?
How am I doing?
You're safe?
I am safe.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Absolutely, we're safe and settling into new routines, and we're okay. Yes.
Good. Okay. Did anyone have any questions for Garrett? Yes.
Garrett, I'm not really sure what a bottle shop is, and can you tell me, is that the downtown zone or the 101 area that they're looking at?
The bottle shop proposal is for the C1 zone, so downtown, and it's described so far in very few words as offering like retail wine sales and on-site consumption, along with snacks and other limited merchandise. And I think that we're going to be asking for some more information from them on what they'd like to do now and what they might like to do in the future. Just to help identify like the most logical request for them to make. And really what I'm seeing is, we have in our zoning code 2 categories of land uses that can be permitted in C1 that come to mind. One is a neighborhood cafe permitted as a conditional use, and one is a neighborhood grocery market. And they're both described a little bit differently. And I think we also just need some more information from the applicant. And at the end of the day, it involves some interpretation that it seems like would benefit from you all doing rather than just me, for example.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Garrett? Yes, Kalina.
I just wanted to ask one question about the FEMA business and with regard to the timelines and that we're supposed to have something in place by December 1st, and we're obviously not going to meet that. Is that a big risk management issue for the city at all? Or should we be considering like a temporary moratorium on building in the wetlands till it gets figured out?
I can address that, Garrett.
Yeah.
So what we're required to do is demonstrate that we're making progress towards implementation. We had expected to get data and maps from FEMA, and frankly, I had expected them in August. if not a little bit earlier. We still don't have them. So what we can demonstrate to FEMA is that we have actively had discussions on this topic. We've explained to the city council that we're waiting for maps. Preliminarily, we're looking at perhaps a hybrid approach, which would probably adopt the FEMA maps, but then have a separate parallel path that a landowner that either believed that the map was not accurate or that there are factors associated with their property that would allow for a different outcome, to allow that as well. And so I think if we look at the totality of that, as well as FEMA acknowledging that they rolled this thing out without any warning, basically, the governor just sent a letter to them asking them to pause this until it's more thought out, until we have more information, instead of trying to rush this through. And there are communities doing a lot of pushback as well. We're not one of those communities. We're trying to do what is required of us. And so I think that there's a very low risk. There will be a date later after December, sometime mid-year, where we will have to have this stuff finalized. So I think if we continue on the current timeline, we'll be there. The worst case scenario would be that we wouldn't get disaster relief funding, but we should have everything in place well before that deadline. And again, I see the timeline horizon extending, not contracting, but we're actually very well positioned compared to other cities as far as what we've done this far in the record that we have established through both public meetings and then internal documentation that we can point to.
Thank you. Yes, Jennifer.
I was wondering if the FEMA changes would affect the building permit applications on Second Street.
Potentially.
If the application was received before FEMA's deadline for implementing the pre-implementation compliance measures, and so we are reviewing that development under the existing floodplain ordinance rather than trying to anticipate what the ordinance amendments will be and reviewing it under those standards. And that's, the way that it should be done. If somehow the applicant withdrew their application or we had to deny it, which well, if that happened and they then reapplied, say later in 2025, then they would be reviewed under the new ordinance if it had taken effect by then.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving on. Peter, did you have anything as staff to report to us?
Well, I think we'll discuss a little bit about the buildable land inventory and housing needs analysis, but that's, I think, going to be later on the agenda. So, but that's something we've been working on pretty actively. Both Garrett and I have been working on that.
Okay, and Andy, do you have anything to report to us?
Nope.
Okay, that's fine. I just asked.
Thank you.
We have a goals list in front of us, and I would like to say that at the candidate forum on Tuesday, one of the questions I asked was about updating or dusting off or fixing grammar, spelling, whatever, in a comprehensive plan. And actually, I thought it was rather acceptable to the candidates. I know Paulina really likes it, but I still have problems with spelling errors and dangling sentences and things like that. So, not that I necessarily want to put it on the goals list, but I thought I would just mention that. Are there other comments about the goals list? Anyone have a concern or want to change anything? Yes, Eric.
So under the comprehensive plan update considerations.
Yes.
The last one, evaluate prohibition of commercial land. Has that always been on this list?
No.
Previous,
Since I've been here.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
All right, it just
I
caught
can
my
see it
attention,
back,
it just
back,
caught my
back.
attention tonight. And so-
Yeah. I think it has to do with the comprehensive plan, basically, you know,
Right.
we can't change residential to commercial. Maybe there's, you know, someone thought there might have been need for it or something like that,
Right.
but I can go back here pretty
No, that's
far.
I trust this, I just wondered, it was the first time it caught my eye that question was on there. So I just wondered if
Yeah,
that got added or if that's always been,
yeah, it's been there for
That's
some time.
that's fine.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Yes, Don.
I did listen to the debate or was that a debate?
No, it's
it
a
was
forum.
Forum. And that question did strike me. So my question is, how does the city of Earhart update the comprehensive plan? What's the mechanism
Well,
for doing that?
I can tell you this, that Russ and I and Sue Lorraine
And Hillary.
and I don't remember Hillary, but was she here? Then she left or something?
Yeah, well, Hillary was her one who did kind of an English teacher.
Okay, but anyway, we did go through it and we didn't change the content. What we did is take things like, there are 3-4 different names for 101 in it. So we said, okay, we're gonna stick to the same name for it. We've had streets change names. We've had things like, there's a line there, water will only come from Warrenton. Fixing those kinds of things and just, there's floating, there's non-sentences, which just bother the heck out of me, and spelling errors. So we went through it all and tried to just upgrade it. What they might do in the future, the city council can say, you know, appoint a committee, they could do whatever they want to. As I understand, if we're just fixing the language and the grammar, we don't need to put it to a vote, do we? I'm asking someone.
Yeah, so if all we're doing is correcting Scrivener errors, then that would be, and we explain that to DLCD, then it would be acknowledged, those would be acknowledged through an expedited path.
Okay. However, if you wanted to change something, like most drastic thing, all residential property can be turned to commercial property. Okay, yeah, you'd have to go through a whole other process.
Does that include the planning commission and the city council? And
Yeah,
the
public
citizens
meetings
committee and all that?
Yeah,
So there's a thorough.
there would be process. Yes, it depends on how much you're changing. And of course, as we have new ordinances or change things, those get added in, and you've seen that as we've had things updated, they get added in wherever they might fit under one of the LCDC 20 things or whatever. But it probably would be time to just dust it off. Dust it off was the word that was used Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't have.
You do not have it, okay. Oh, we spent so much time. Do you have it?
I don't think I have it electronically, but I believe I have paper.
Well, that might be a place to
I can
start.
scan that. And it.
I'll look around.
I don't know that I have it either.
When was that done?
We probably did it 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Probably. Because when I first came on the planning commission, one of the things I said when I was interviewed, you know, they asked the question, are you familiar with the comprehensive plan? So I said, yeah, but there's lots of spelling errors and grammatical errors. And I think when someone's trying to read it, what I do when I read something, when I say grammatical error, I kind of just freeze on it. And there's content.
But if I remember correctly, it was never adopted.
No, it was never done.
We, the three of us did it, gave it to city council. City council found something they didn't care for and said, put it back in the.
And never went into place.
So it's, I don't even know if there's a version still working.
Oh, Ina says she might have a version of it.
It was a very difficult document, in my opinion, to read through because it was in the Google documents where you
you strike your changes and you underline, and then you've got all the comments over here on the side. And a lot of it is just changing numbering and these, so you have all those changes. And then you gotta look to see that the content hasn't changed. It will really require a fine tooth comb to look at it if we get into that. It could have been presented a different way. I thought it was presented very difficult because when you're reading a document, you've got the red strikeouts, and you've got this, and you're substituting that. And but in the future, it would be a good idea to do that. Yeah, big paper. So, any other comments? Let's see. Oh, I left commissioners' comments. I didn't do that one. Anything from commissioners they'd like to tell us about? Nothing. Okay.
Not any.
No, I didn't, but we can keep back there. Like I said, we did the AUW did the candidate forum on Tuesday, and Paulina was there, and we had good turnout from Gerhardt citizens. 5 of the people running for office were there, so that was good, and it certainly was an enjoyable evening for me. And I know that Paulina was nervous, but she still did an excellent job. I guess so. So you can, if you haven't seen that, you can see it. Go to City of Seaside, their YouTube thing, and it will connect you. You can watch it. All right, moving forward, we have a public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, visitors' comments. So sorry. Visitors' comments. Do you have any visitors' comments from anyone out there? I don't see anything. Any visitors' comments here? All right. Thank you, everyone. Then we will move on to public hearings. So public hearings filed 24-05 ZMA zone change request submitted by Scopie Gerhardt LLC located at 1002 Pacific Way and further described as assessor's plat 6.10 but 0.10 BA tax lot 1500. Said request is to change the zone from public and semi-public P/SP zone to low density residential R-1. I am required to open the hearing. I need to read the disclosure statement. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board of appeals or to seek damages in circuit court due to condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the Planning Commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence, arguments, or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearing body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence, argument, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763 6A through E. I need to ask the commissioners, do you have any conflict of interest, ex parte contact, or personal bias?
No.
Yes, Mr.
I
Frank.
have visited the site.
You have visited the site. I have visited the site. We all drive by it. Good luck.
I visited it distantly several years ago.
All right. I caught it. Okay, thank you. I need to ask the audience, are there any challenges to the commission's ability to make an impartial decision? Hearing none, I will go to the staff report. Garrett, are you going to handle this?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So on October 7th, this Monday, the applicant's representative contacted the city with a letter that is in the record and available online on the Planning Commission's meeting webpage. It should be in your packet, or it should have been emailed to you, that requests that the hearing be continued till April 10th, 2025. And the letter outlines reasons why they're making the request, including that they would like more time to consider their long-term plans and uses for the property. And so you all can continue the hearing to April 10th, 2025. We would, if you do it that way, we would not have to renotice the hearing. We would collect and maintain a record of all testimony that's submitted in writing so far and between now and April, and make it available to you. And if there's any facts or additional considerations that warrant a change in the staff report, we'd update the staff report. But all in all, staff found, that this request was reasonable and thought it would be a good idea to grant this continuance if the applicant is interested in thinking through their long-term uses more completely. And so instead of going on with the staff report that we had prepared, I'm going to leave it at that and invite you to continue the hearing to April 10th, 2025.
At 6 p.m., the meeting would begin at 6 p.m.
That's right, yeah.
All right, it's a regular scheduled
Correct.
planning commission meeting.
Yeah.
So, I believe I need a motion to grant the continuance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. So I need a motion to continue the public hearing to April 10th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Russ has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Eric is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. We will continue it till April 10th at the 6 p.m. meeting here in the city of Deer Okay. All right, moving forward. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business, but we have Garrett and Peter that like to present information about housing and infrastructure needs assessment. If anyone needs to leave that was here for the hearing, community. So I don't know which one he's going to take.
I can take the first crack at this. So all of you may recall in around 2018, we did what's called a buildable lands inventory, as well as a housing needs analysis. That was done throughout Clatsop County. We got our preliminary numbers back as part of that report, and we believed that those numbers were probably not accurate. We had the consultants come back in and ground truth our numbers, and it ended up in a reduction of around 50% of the units that they said were available as compared to what actually was. And part of that is they looked at zoning and raw acres, and they did not consider what we commonly refer to as the no build line, or also the Palmer line, which are both lines that prohibit development west of a certain spot. And it turned out that the Portland State population estimates that were part of that report were so off that the report could not be utilized. So, for instance, our population growth as compared to what was projected was 4x. So we had 4 times as much population growth as they had projected, between 10 and 20. And there were other communities that had population growth that was even more. I think Seaside's was around 11x. So we have been working with Portland State in order to look at our population projections going forward. And we had new consultants come in. The preliminary numbers seem like they might be off. So Garrett and I have been working with them in advocating that they take our prior ground truth numbers, lots, and subtract from that all the development that happened between the time those numbers were ground truthed and now. And then we've also asked them to look at some other factors. They have the Wiederhorn property, a bunch of units on that. That does not seem particularly likely. There are other areas that are identified that we kind of are questioning whether those are really developable. And so we're continuing to kind of sort through those issues with them. The good news is the main people doing it I've known for and worked with in various capacities for over a decade. So we're starting off from kind of a place of trust. And again, the reason that all of this is important beyond just land use is because these projections are how we receive our share of shared state funds. So because our population was off by so much, really what that meant is the amount of gas tax and liquor tax and other shared state revenues, as well as the ARPA funds, we did not get the amount that we should have received because the state uses Portland State's population projections to allocate those funds instead of the census numbers.
Okay, Garrett, are you gonna add to that?
I don't think so. I think that's a great summary. Right now we're trying to work with that consultant, 3J Consulting, just to make sure that their assessment of land that's buildable is, accurate, and that involves going back and looking at the last BLI and just asking them to, describe their process and giving them some ideas for refinement. And then we have to also give them some extra guidance on, how developable lots are in Gearhart, given that we don't have a sewer system. There's some special considerations for that as well. And so it's just it's a process, but they've been really responsive to our feedback, and ultimately the BLI will, the draft BLI will come to you all for a review. But at this point, we're still just in the middle of working on some of these initial issues.
Okay. Are there questions for the commissioners? Yes, Paulina.
The 3J consultants, who are they exactly working for, or did we hire them, or Portland State, or?
No,
yeah, so 3J.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so 3J was hired by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, technically. So how this came about is that the city of Gearhart and the other cities in Clatsop County, along with Clatsop County, signed on to a grant proposal to the state of Oregon in 2023, requesting funding or state funded technical assistance to update buildable land inventories, create infrastructure needs assessments, and ultimately create a housing needs assessment that will sort of tie these different concepts together, like land availability, housing demand, infrastructure issues. We'll tie those issues together for each city and the county itself. DLCD awarded this regional consortium that we call the Regional Housing Task Force, essentially. They said, yes, we'll fund this proposal. So the way that they do that is that Clatsop County is technically the project manager for all the jurisdictions, and DLCD directly hires the consultant to work for all of us. And the consultant communicates directly with us when it comes to our BLI, our buildable lands inventory, and the other project components to get our input. And not only our input, but they invited us to help scope the project, and we were instrumental in writing the proposal from the beginning. So
we were the jurisdiction that flagged what really is a countywide issue. And then we said, we're the only jurisdiction that likely has accurate numbers, because if the prior consultants were off on a percentage basis in other jurisdictions, anywhere close to where they were off with us, then nobody has accurate data. And that, also pointed out that we have like a limited capacity to grow. Gerhard does, for a lot of reasons. And to the extent that there's growth in the county and with workforce issues, it's probably going to need to be somewhere else, probably north of us. But those jurisdictions having inaccurate numbers, both for how many lots they have available as well as population growth, absolutely impacts our ability to make sure that we have a workforce that's able to serve the population here. And so there was a lot of advocacy around that. I attended multiple meetings with Portland State to make sure they were aware of the impact of their prior estimates. So we were very vocal, actually.
Are there other questions? Russ?
Is the inventory within the city limits or the urban growth boundary?
It's within the urban growth boundary. So we have what's called an urban growth management agreement with Clatsop County. So for the land that is in that UGMA area, we're responsible for the planning for it. And then separate from that, previously negotiated, and all of this predates me, and speaking of things we might want to update, our UGMA with Clatsop County would be, in my mind, the leading candidate, because there's definitely some clarification that needs to occur. In addition to that, we have a water services area agreement that requires us to provide water to certain, a mapped area. So those are the kind of two ways that we participate in growth both within and outside of the city.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Jennifer.
Is there a timeline for some of this?
Is there a timeline?
It generally take about a year, and then they have to go to DLCD staff and they have to be acknowledged. And one of the interesting things about our prior work is that the countywide was acknowledged and our ground truth numbers were not acknowledged. So, because we did it outside of that process. So again, we have accurate numbers, but our ability to utilize them with the state is compromised. And then the other piece is, to the extent that this is how we would get grants or legislative dollars for infrastructure. And when I say we, I mean it as a county. So if we can point to, there's this land that will be available, but for a jurisdiction that has sewer, but because it's this far from the sewer or this far from water or whatever that is, we need the bridge, they would need the bridge funds. Those could be provided by the legislature in theory.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your report. I believe at this point that you presented us information and you will come back to us when you have more information. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right, all right. Thank you. So moving on, any concerns of the commission? Do we have any questions for Peter? If not, it is 6:48. And the meeting is closed. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Gary.
Did he vote no on the?
What?
Did he vote no on the continuance? No,
Yeah.
I just heard, yeah, I just heard like.
I asked if there was, no, I asked if there was a name.